Hey everyone, Flav from the Blockchain Game Alliance here. Today we're gonna have the pleasure to invite Scale, but not only Scale, but the whole ecosystem, some of the game partners, because actually today we would love to understand more what is Scale. This is a modular multi-chain Ethereum scalability blockchain network. They are known to deliver zero gas fee experience for games, but not only that, we really want to capitalize on their expertise, but also have some feedback from the game partners they have to understand how they are using Scale, why, what they do, what games they are developing as well. So pleasure to have everyone here. And I'm gonna just start to ask you guys if you could introduce yourself. So starting with you, Jack, if you can.
Hey everybody, I'm Jack O'Halloran. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Scale Labs. We are the core team behind the Scale Network. Scale is a decentralized blockchain network that's built to make Ethereum applications run really, really fast. And it's actually purpose-built for gaming. Gaming and Web3 social apps are the two main categories for Scale, as opposed to being very focused on DeFi or other use cases. And that's because Scale has supports lots of transactions at very low cost with high security, which we'll talk about later. But pleasure to be here, Flav. Thank you.
Awesome. Very good to have you here. Dominic, if you can introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Dominic Meyer. I'm the CEO and founder of iBlocks. We are a game development studio and Web3 consulting firm, and we are in the midst of the beta testing of our blockchain-based game. It's a hero shooter, third-person shooter built on Scale, and yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, excited by what you do and the FPS actually you're building. So very cool to have you, Dominic, as well. And Kwame, long time no see. Obviously, we had the pleasure to have you for different purposes some times ago. So a pleasure to have you again. Could you obviously introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, great. Yeah, my name is Kwame Bryan. I'm the CTO of the Voxelverse Prospectors NFT. It's a gathering game crafting game that's built on Scale, and I've been a part of the Scale ecosystem since 2020 when I joined a hackathon. And and I also work on a project called Web3 Unity. It's it's an SDK that basically allows you to connect to Web3 from Unity. And pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Kwame. So as I said, at first, it will be interesting to know more about Scale as a whole ecosystem network as well. So Jack, if you could give us more insights about it with a deck that you have, if I'm not mistaken.
All right, awesome. Well, let's jump into this. I have a few slides, so 1 second. I'll share my screen here. Okay. All right, well, let's kick this off. So hey, my pleasure to give a quick overview of Scale. I know we have a lot of game devs listening and members here of the organization, so I'm going to dig into this. So Scale is a blockchain built for gaming. It's actually integrated with Ethereum, so I say it's a very Ethereum-friendly scaling solution for gaming. And our goal is to help create invisible Web3 gaming experiences, and that can be a whole gamut of implementations. But at the end of the day, one of our main goals is to try to make it so the blockchain itself is as invisible as possible. Okay, and that's one of the main ways we do that is by removing gas fees while still having a sound economic component. So a little background on Scale: we've been around since the beginning of 2018, and it just took a really long time to build this very robust, complex shared security network. But in the last 12 months, we've had 1.3 billion in gas fees saved, over 80 million on-chain transactions. There's 4 live Scale hubs right now. I want to call out Nebula as the gaming hub, which is a gaming epicenter. And hubs add a lot of value in a diverse multi-chain network because they're center points for liquidity and users and deploying of smart contracts of specific types like gaming. There's been 475,000 plus active wallets in the last year, since Scale started. There are already 20 EVM chains, and there's over 5 million Scale token holders globally across centralized and decentralized systems. So hey, the gaming ecosystem's booming here. I've got some of our buddies here who were some of my favorite builders, and I think thought leaders. We're going to be hearing from them today, as well as some other, just a sub selection of games building on scale. And there's a very diverse set of games, but and lots of different use cases. At the end of the day, our goal is to help, if you're running EVM, help you do it fast and in a gas-free manner that, with still having a sustainable economic experience. So before I get into kind of I'm going to talk high level, talk a little less technical, and then I'm going to get into some of the tech for those of you that are interested in understanding what's under the hood. So one, Scale's optimized for user experience. When you're designing a blockchain scaling system, there are many different levers you can pull, and there's no magic silver bullet. So you have to have some trade-offs in different areas. And we, by building on Ethereum and then extending out from Ethereum, Scale is able to solve for a lot of those dependencies. And really, though, when at the end of the day, we said we need to optimize user experience. If we can't get, tens and hundreds and a million people playing games who are not technical, we're never going to win in gaming, right? You're not going to win in gaming by having, hundreds of thousands of users. We need millions of users. It has to be. And so there's things that need to change. It's also optimized for speed and finality. And it also has provable security. It has 100% provable security through the consensus layer. The EVM is a C++ Ethereum that is incredibly fast. Most EVM solutions are gated through via Geth in terms of their throughput. And Scale really went deep into the low-level components and made a very, very fast C++ Ethereum. And by the way, all this code's open source for those of you that want to get in and get into it. It's also decentralized. The core team, the foundation, don't run a single node. There's roughly 150 nodes run by 30 plus validator orgs. And on-chain governance kicks off now this week. So the first on-chain vote is happening. Prior, all governance was managed in the same way Ethereum does governance. The last piece I want to call out is the operational costs and fee structure is predictable. And if you are want to use a relayer and subsidized gas fees, those costs could be, almost an order of magnitude different based off different factors on the mainnet or another chain's capacity. And our goal is to make that predictable and low cost. And again, zero gas fees with sustainable economics. All right, so I just want to call out before I get into kind of the nuts and bolts. Dartmouth did a study recently. This is, you can find this online. And they tested throughput in terms of transaction volume or transaction capacity, TPS, and time to finality. So how fast do you get to finality? And Scale is instant finality, but how fast does it go from when somebody implements a transaction to all the things that need to happen to make it final? And Scale finished ahead of all these other major chains you see here, such as Polygon, Avalanche, Solana, Phantom, Near. You can see these results, and it was great. We'd been telling people how fast Scale was. It was nice to see somebody else go do independent research. They worked with all these different core teams to validate their technological method and published a white paper on this. So, and I call this out because these are two things that are really important for gaming. Your transactions per second and your finality are really important for game experience. Okay, so the number one question I'm asked is, how does Scale deliver high performance and zero gas fees? And it's like, well, how do you, somebody has to pay, right? Validators need to be paid. Delegators have to be paid. Validators are plugging these servers in. It costs money to do that. You need security mechanisms. So how does this work? Well, first off, Scale is a multi-chain network. So instead of one database or one blockchain with limited supply, Scale's many, many blockchains that all pool security together. And that security is built into Ethereum. It's anchored in Ethereum because all Scale staking is in Ethereum. Core network operations that prevent collusion and other security attack vectors live on Ethereum to protect Scale. And so why are we even doing this? There's a lot of talk about layer 2s. Well, and a lot of talk about monolithic layer 1s, but obviously monolithic layer 1s at some point, if capacity is too high, or if throughput's too high or load's too high, they have to raise fees. It's like a rideshare platform. If you're taking an Uber or Lyft and there's 100 drivers and 120 people on a ride, well, they have to increase the fees otherwise everyone just has to wait. And blockchains are the same way. And when it comes to layer 2s to date have been making efforts to scale what I would say vertically on one chain. So they have a blockchain, and then they're trying to stack off-chain computation and use centralized systems, use AWS or Google Cloud or other systems with verifiable functions to try to scale Ethereum or whatever the blockchain is. Our feeling is that's centralized. And I think a lot of people now are saying, hey, layer 2s have a lot of centralization issues. Most of them don't have all the fraud proofs turned on. There's a lot of attack vectors still. And so we have centralization and we still have open attack vectors. And so with Scale, and you'll see this has become a very popular technique now, and other people are launching initiatives to do this. But instead of having one chain, you have many chains. But the goal is to help that not fragment security as you add chains, okay? Going a little further, traditional side chains, and I'm looking here, we've got a blockchain, and below it, security, there's a validator set, there's another blockchain validator set. The issue is, as you add these validators, add these chains, and you keep adding individualized validator sets, what you're really doing is just creating side chains, and you have a ton of issues that side chains have because you're fragmenting your security. You have these small validator sets that are susceptible to collusion. They can get stuck. They can lose liveliness. Lots of things can happen. Compared to below, I've got a layer 1 blockchain, and then no fragmented security. You've got a big capacity, big security. Okay. And so our goal with Scale is to have pooled security. So you have many blockchains, but one validator set. That one validator set, the role it provides is that it secures all of these chains. But so the chains share security, but they don't share performance. Nebula, the gaming chain, isn't slowed down if Calypso, the NFT chain, or Europa, the DeFi chain, is really busy, or some game or application might have its own chain and be hammering, being a noisy neighbor, hammering transactions. It has absolutely zero impact on these other chains, but they all share a security properties. And also, by building in the Ethereum mainnet, like I talked about earlier with staking and other core network functions, you can also borrow some security from the Ethereum mainnet, which not some security, but really meaningful security to prevent collusion and secure the network. And so that's what Scale does. And here's kind of a high level view of this with, Scale, Ethereum, and then the Scale validator set. That's one unified set. And then these individualized chains that are all made up of nodes running in the Scale network with staking in the Ethereum network. And that's the model for Scale. Now, a big piece of this about the zero gas fees is, well, if there's no gas fees, then who pays? Well, what happens is each of these chains has to be paid, have Scale tokens paid in order for it to run and operate. And the thing is, when you're paying in advance for a compute space, and this is a condensed presentation, at some point I'd be happy to go deeper if anyone's interested, and there's a lot of information online about this, but utilizing containers like Docker containers and other modules, we're able to actually let the validators rent out their compute space. And it's almost like renting a car. You rent it by the month instead of the mile. And hey, that car might sit in the garage all month, but you're still going to pay the same price as if you drove it constantly. And that model makes much better unit economics for anybody who wants to subsidize gas fees for end users. So it's going to cost less, and it's more simple, and it's predictable. But you still have to pay, and you pay in Scale, and you pay in advance for that space. Last thing I want to call out here before I've got two more things before I close, because we got to hear from the builders. We've got some exciting stuff to see today, and I love that. And so I'm going to try to get to this soon. But I want to talk about Scale Connect. Scale Connect will be launching this year. What it does is it actually, in the Scale gaming, in the Scale chains, any NFT on any other EVM chain can be utilized within the Scale network in gaming. And it can be utilized through the Scale Oracle without any custodial risk or security risk. And so what happens is the Scale Oracle natively lives on every Scale chain. It's there. All these pieces were there already because Scale has BLS threshold encryption, trusted execution environment, a leaderless BFT consensus, a lot of ingredients you need to run an Oracle. Well, people came to us and said, well, can we use this Oracle to just validate that this user, bought this $1 million NFT on the Ethereum mainnet, and can they use that over on Scale? And okay, that user, we can validate, the Scale chain can validate that user has that that NFT. And then if, let's say, the user sends it to someone else, well, the Oracle is going to recognize that and will no longer allow the prior user to leverage that. And, you know, maybe you have these NFT sets on the Ethereum mainnet, and then people are coming over, playing on Scale. New NFTs are being minted on Scale, and we're creating this, you know, seamless connected experience. But it ends up enabling a lot more, even greater performance or functionality and use cases. And this will be launching later this year. You know, our goal is to help Scale be the gaming engine and connect, you know, which Scale has a robust gaming NFT ecosystem, but we want to, you know, remove the border and grow that NFT ecosystem for Scale projects, people building on Scale. Also, there's an ability to opt in through the mainnet and just even make the Scale connection invisible, purely invisible, which people are already doing different variations of this today. And, you know, to make it so normal users don't need to have complexities of self-custodial wallets and, you know, or, you know, keep both options open. We obviously, you know, I think there's different types of users. So we want to help enable all those use cases come together. All right, last piece, I just want to say Scale ZK is launching. Now, Scale ZK still will cost money and have latency. And ZK is improving. I think it's still going to be a few years till we actually really see the full impact. But we see ZK as adding augmented functionality. So let's say you have hundreds of thousands of users or millions of users or players. Well, they might be utilizing Scale Consensus to execute all these in-game transactions. But let's say you wanted to mint a really expensive NFT. Well, you could use the ZK, post those back to the mainnet, and in advance design that so the user doesn't know the difference, but integrate ZK almost as if another club in the golf bag. Okay, so I'm going to end the show here. And, you know, that was a lot of information, quick. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And Flav, yeah, any questions or thoughts to unpack there?
Yeah, I think obviously we'll have some question at the end, maybe of the call and after the presentation of our two games. But thanks a lot, Jack, for the presentation. Quite comprehensive. It explains very well Scale's benefits, comparing with layer 1, layer 2 sidechains, based also on the challenges of a game developer and his very important decisions to choose for a specific network and the challenges in terms of scalability and security he has to handle. So it makes perfect sense. And please, we will be able to share any kind of documentation to go through the tech, obviously, because you didn't have a lot of time to obviously explain in a deeper level. So obviously we'll be able to share any kind of information around that. So thanks a lot, Jack, for this. And we'll come back to you with some question, obviously. Would love to have one of you, obviously will be both, but if Kwame, you're ready to show your game and explain what you do, go deeper into the development of the game and obviously show how Scale is helping the game as well. So once you're ready, you tell me and we're gonna show the game.
Okay, so I'll just get myself set up here.
As soon as I can sit, I'm gonna display it. Okay, I can sit, and you are good to go.
Okay, so this is our game. It's called the Voxelverse Prospectors NFT, and on the left side of that, you can actually see the the transactions that we'll be going through. Now there might be a little bit of a delay here as we're just kind of streaming, and then there's like centralized servers that are holding the game. But as I go through and interact with the actual world here and start picking up some items, we should start seeing transactions start to populate. Now, the one thing that's awesome about Scale is that when we were designing it, we kind of had ideas of how would we actually onboard users and say get them to mint an item, or how would the actual onboarding experience actually work. And just make sure that sometimes you got to load here. There we go. Sometimes I have two different screens, so if this one's active, then this one will not basically populate. But let's just say that I start interacting here. And then we should start seeing an actual like transaction. And you'll notice here that as I'm like interacting with the world and, getting incentivized by, chopping down trees, it takes about, less than like 5 seconds for this to basically go through. And there's obviously a delay here also. Now I'll go here and I'll say craft out an actual pickaxe. And this is all like paid through by the actual, the team, right? The chain is actually paying for it. So all of our users can onboard. They do need an EOA or externally owned account in order to get going, but they don't need to have any gas. They don't need to have any tokens whatsoever. This is all basically paid for by, the team. And, there's the incentive mechanisms, of course, to mint and get like other types of assets. Now, working on scale, I think that the best part, for me as a developer, was the help that you get from the actual team. They made it really easy for us to, see our vision of what Prospectors NFT in the Voxelverse was going to be, and then helped us basically build that. And of course, this game actually runs on the Nebula Gaming Hub. So there's about 10, 12 games, and more are coming on with each week. And yeah, it's pretty much the best chain. Working on Web3 Unity, I chain safe. I've worked on pretty much every chain out there, EVM flavored, and I have stuck with Scale for the last 2 years of building, and don't see any need to basically use anything else. So I'm kind of all in with what I'm doing on Scale, and that's just a little taste of our game. If you want to come and play it, it's at voxelverse.ca. And yeah, that's basically it for me.
So you play the game, and a lot of action, if not every action you do in the game, have some trigger some transaction on chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So every interaction with like crafting and chopping down trees or mining is written on chain, and it's one of the coolest experiences because there's no need for every sign or there's specific things that we don't actually have to get the user to have a pop-up and click confirm on it, because we can handle all that behind the scenes. Because the way that Scale works is that there's an allocation of S fuel, which is kind of like the oil that basically allows us to kind of offset. If you think of like an EIP standard like 4337, where you have like a paymaster, well, we can actually design paymaster. So it's kind of funny that 4337 and EIP 6551 have become like really popular, but Scale kind of had these before they became really popular ideas to do in the space. Like we were able to simulate these standards before they became like the ideal way to do gasless transactions.
Awesome. And based on that decision to actually have a lot of actions, if not most of the action in game with one transaction on chain, what could be it could be a question as well for you, Jack. You decided to jump on the conversation, but what are the primary motivations for you specifically, Kwame, behind this idea of developing the game fully, let's say mostly on chain? What kind of value you see in doing that?
Well, security is a huge issue in just games in general. And with the verifiability of being able to write all these things on chain and not have the user pay for it, we can actually add a layer of in-game security that just hasn't been present. Because with a traditional database, is basically centralized. There's an opportunity for, as me as the database operator, in order to fiddle numbers and go behind the scenes. That can't be done on the blockchain. Every account and every transaction is verifiable. You can prove it. A community can get behind this and go, hey, this particular account is cheating, and either ban that address from playing the game, or whatever the case, or whatever kind of DAO system you might have for an on-chain game, which you can't do with a centralized database. So that to me was the the biggest thing. And of course, coming from like a traditional Web 2 game development background, is that a blockchain is just like a way better database, right? And most people would I kind of agree with that as well. Oh, I got to get away.
Yeah, I'll add to that a bit. Just some, something I see. Like, well, one, I think there's a whole spectrum of how blockchains utilize in gaming, which most people listening probably see and get. Like on one end, you could just have really just a Web 2 game and a web, with a database, and there's a omnibus store wallet that they're like, yeah, we'll just store the NFTs here, and then if somebody ever wants to leave, we'll let them send them their NFT, or they can kind of trade it over here, and we'll just hold them. And it's not really blockchain gaming, but hey, they're using NFTs as a a ledger to some degree. On the other hand, you have like full on-chain gaming, and with all these action and events happening on chain, being posted on chain, connected to smart contracts. So the question is like, why on that end of the spectrum? And I think it's Kwame touched on this. And when you have in-game currencies and NFTs and things that matter to users, and these events can be all of a sudden made trustless and verifiable, it brings us new level of transparency and like UX to users that care. And I think a lot of people, it's kind of like online data privacy. Everyone's like, oh, users don't care. Well, that was in 2010, they didn't care. In 2023, nobody's really happy about Mark Zuckerberg selling their data. And when it comes to gaming, I think we're getting ready to see this big uptick where users are going to say, hey, like if I win this event, I want to know I won in a fair manner. And I know that when I click that and I grab that and I have this sword or I have this gun, I own that. I own that as an NFT. And Dominic will be touching on this later too. They do some cool stuff in the same regard. But, it's really about like, I think the user mentality is changing, especially younger players and younger users, as that, audience, a segment of people is more Web3 native compared to, other, types of gamers.
Yeah. Also, what I see is here that you have a lot of transaction. Each actions means one transaction, and it seems like it's not impacting at all the gaming experience, Kwame. Like, you don't have any web related to that.
And I love showing this example of the game actually being played, and then the transactions actually being seen on the blockchain, which is something that you usually don't see in a blockchain game, because there's such a delay between the actual in-game interaction and what's actually happening on chain. And also take into account that this is being streamed, so there is like the discrepancies there. But when you're playing it and you do an action and you get assets sent into your wallet, and that's happening in real time. It's just like an experience that like I hadn't seen before, where there's a close comparison to developing a game that just uses a centralized database and then an open permission blockchain, and having them be like almost comparable. And I did a video for Scale a while back when we first actually got this whole thing working, and I was blown away when I made the video. And I just continually being surprised of what the Scale core team continually does in pushing the envelope. And as the message gets out there, and as blockchain game developers start understanding that blockchains are just a better database, and that you can abstract a lot of this blockchaininess from your games and just have a user just play a game and not even really know that they're on a blockchain, then it's like the end game.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot, Kwame, for showing the game. It looks fantastic, and I really like actually this idea of having in one side the game experience and one side what's happening on chain. Like as you said, the video you've made was quite impressive, so it's good to go into that as well. So thanks. Obviously, we'll get into other questions at the end, but thanks for your time showing the game. Would love to do the same with you, Dominic, if you agree.
I would love to as well. Unfortunately, we're actually headquartered in Dubai, and in Dubai it's public holidays. So we have been working extremely hard over the last weeks and months, and decided to give the team off and decided myself to travel. But I can show you a couple of gameplay scenes. I was just looking if I see the gameplay when Jack was playing at the GDC. That's actually a good one. But let me see what I can find here.
At GDC, I was there and I didn't get the chance to play it.
I was actually at your booth very shortly, but
really?
you weren't around, and yeah, it was
My fault.
very busy. But I'm pretty sure we'll able to catch up soon again. I don't know. Do you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see
Perfect.
it. Yes.
Awesome. So this is gameplay recorded that we did. We from iBlocks, we developed 0x Battleground. It's a hero shooter, third-person shooter. There's like battle royale elements in it. There's like an extraction game layer in it, and we're even focusing on esports. So the purpose of the game is literally you play this battle royale style of environment and level up in divisions and ultimately try to qualify for a regular tournament. And when we started building our game, and this was literally from day one, and I promise this was not pre-discussed with Jack, but we have so many points of alignment here. Our goal was literally to make the Web3 space completely invisible and do it completely for the user. So our vision was always to be the Web3 game for Web2 gamers, literally. And when we were at the GDC in San Francisco, this was actually the #1 feedback that we've gotten. People that were playing our game at the booth, they were actually stunned that this is a blockchain game. And when I showed them all the transactions on scale in the background and showed them, look, here are all the transactions, here's the NFTs that you minted, here's the breeding that you did afterwards and things like that, they were like super surprised because there was literally no technological friction. And I think when we go back in the first wave of crypto gaming, there were a couple, I mean, the market was obviously very strong and in a bull market, and certain games did incredibly well for some period of time. But afterwards, when those games started to struggle a bit, I think there were a couple of reasons for that, and one of the big reasons was always this technological friction, right? So when we started building this game about almost 2 years ago, 18 months ago, our vision was always to make it as easy and seamless as possible. So when you download our game, we have a wallet generator built into the game, so your wallet is automatically generated on your local machine, so you have custody, and you can instantly start gaming, and all the transactions are on chain. And the only reason that is possible is actually because of scale, that we are taking care of the gas fees in the background, right? Because the difference between having very low gas fees when you go to a layer 2, and let's say you pay 0.001 cent or whatever it is, that's cute. The problem is you're still forcing the user to have that gas fee token, right? And that means you're limiting your universe of potential players dramatically, because you're going into the Web3 space directly. And in today's market, there's about 2 million active daily wallets, if you check the numbers on DappRadar, and about half of those are connected to gaming, and that's nice. Yeah, it's 1 million daily active players, you can say, in crypto gaming, but compare that to the hundreds of millions in Web2, it's literally tiny, right? Now, if you force yourself to pay gas fees for the users, then you limit that, and from our perspective, this doesn't make too much sense. So we always had a focus of having this, what Jack called so eloquently, invisible in the background, and that was always the mission for us. So literally everything that you can do in our game is completely invisible and runs in the background from that end. So this is kind of like what we focused on and what we built.
Awesome. Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually, and so for me, obviously when we talk about blockchain gaming, and especially it makes a lot of sense to have a lot of things on chain when we talk about trading card game, like it's the kind of genre, the big genre when we talk about blockchain gaming. But for me, FPS makes a lot of sense as well. I would love to have your opinion on that, why blockchain matters so much for these kind of game.
Well, it's was already mentioned by Kwame at the beginning. So in FPS games, there's a significant amount of cheating going on, and it's obviously a big problem. And with blockchain, with having this transparency and this immutability in the background as well, you can actually use blockchain technology for security aspects as well, right? So when we talk to people that are interested in our game and that have a blockchain background and know quite a bit, and they're asking us, okay, what are the features? I mean, there's these common features of, it's great to have asset ownership, that you literally own these assets, and that you have rewards that are on chain and things like that. But I think people often forget the security aspect of it, and especially in FPS games where there's so much cheating going on, and we can literally validate, right? Like, okay, well, if this player got killed, but this one, he was shooting with a special gun, was that damage accurate? And we are constantly reading the wallets of the players in the match, and run some security features in the background. We're also doing some validations if this player is supposed to be in this match or not. So you can do the whole MMR, the matchmaking ranking you could actually do on chain, and then we are working on things like that in the background as well.
Yeah, when you see companies like Riot Games and Valorant with the number of cheaters that you could see,
yes,
and the pain to actually remove them with specific operation, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, having said all that, we also obviously working with traditional anti-cheats because it's super important.
Yes.
But for us, we're trying to leverage as much as possible blockchain technology, because that's just the most secure, right? Like from that end. I mean, you can hack a game, that's one thing, but try to hack a blockchain, that's not that easy, right? So good luck with that. And from that aspect, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, one thing I just want to say after seeing both of these games, so I think on-chain gaming has this bad, mystique that it's this it's this taboo that, hey, you have to have an engineering degree to do on-chain gaming. You have to, be an experienced MetaMask user. You have to have this whole set of tokens to be able to even go start playing. And I think you see both these games, and that's kind of why I think, we've all just aligned in our vision so quickly together is, on-chain gaming doesn't have to be cumbersome or difficult, and you can have the values of on-chain gaming with the experience of very low touch Web3 game or Web2 game even. So
absolutely. So this was fast, like literally, you will not see a difference of playing our game and playing any other shooter game, but you have all the benefits of blockchain technology. So there's literally no technological friction whatsoever.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you guys for sharing that to us. I would say some other question I will have based on what you actually said, Dominic, and will be what could we expect as an industry? Because you said, like, we are very happy when we see big numbers in terms of how many transactions we got, user active wallets, unique active wallets on Dapper for specific games. Obviously, that's not a big deal based on the number of players, as you said. So what is going to be a question for every one of you, actually, but starting with you, what's missing in our industry, gaming, before we reach mass adoption for blockchain games? Let's say blockchain games, games using blockchain technologies.
Yeah, I think what we already mentioned was this technological friction. It was way too difficult, right? Like bridging tokens from one chain to the other, installing MetaMask in itself. These things were all like incredibly difficult for users, even for us as crypto guys. Even for us, it was not so easy to play certain games. We had to bridge tokens to Avalanche, and that took forever, and all of that, and setting up a MetaMask wallet itself is super easy for people that are in crypto, but it's not for someone who has never done it, right? Like they can confuse for that, and then they get turned off. So I think this technological friction was certainly one of the aspects, but the biggest aspect was there weren't weren't really any good games out there, right? Like it was more like this DeFi component that was quite successful in the bull market of 2021 when Axie Infinity and some other games completely exploded. And I remember, I mean, Axie paid out, I think, $3 billion of rewards in 2021. And of course, this attracted quite a lot of players. But, you know, games itself need to be fun first, right? Like, I honestly believe that there's so many good games coming now. We have seen many of them. And I think if they manage to have this you know, ease of use and good customer experience, you know, that should be very, very similar to Web 2 games. I think then that's when mass adoption will kick in.
Totally. Kwame, what do you think? What's happening in the ecosystem right now? What do we miss to reach mass adoption for gaming with blockchain technologies?
Geez, from my standpoint, it's kind of twofold. Smart contract wallets is going to be the push to, you know, allow, you know, Web 2 users to kind of just seamlessly get account created for them and just be able to play without kind of any like friction in the onboarding process. And the second part is going to be like the tools, like, you know, like I work on Web3 Unity at ChainSafe, and having more and more competition of these different tools to make it easier for developers to build games. But we're just kind of in the cusp of it, like where the games that are coming out in, say, like the next year to 2 years, and the continual iteration of like the Voxelverse, games take a long time to do, right? So and good games take even longer. So we probably won't see the, you know, the echelons of these really great blockchain games for probably the next 2 years. And as these teams can continually build through these bear markets and stay motivated, and then still have support from the partners that they're working with. Like, we're pretty lucky on our team that we have a lot of support from the Scale team to continually push through the bear markets and continually build and getting the, you know, marketing teams to work with us. But getting the word out that games, like blockchain games, if we could just remove the name blockchain games and then they're just games, I think that would help a lot of us, right? But, you know, being on this call, you know, it's blockchain game focused, but as soon as we can actually remove the whole word of blockchain game, and it's just a game that utilizes an underlying technology that's called the blockchain, I think that's what we need, because there's still the stigma. And I mean, Axie Infinity was great for getting people involved and starting to talk about how we can do things on chain, but it's also like its collapse kind of, you know, set us back at the same time. But, you know, that's just the ropes when something's new.
Totally. Jack, do you share the same feeling?
Yeah, I do. And kind of, you know, I kind of see this as the storm that's brewing right now. And I do think we finally crossed this point where we have, like, you saw it today, like phenomenal game user experiences. And that wasn't the case before. And I think, but still though, even though we had like really bad UX and games that maybe weren't that fun, look at all the people that played before during the last market cycle. And I think now we're at this point where we're bringing more to the table for this next kind of wave. But right now, your average person, the amount of people that visit CoinDesk and you know, read Cointelegraph every day, it's like, if you go to SimilarWeb, it's like 1/20th of, you know, 2 years ago. And so I think there's just like a buzz that's not there, that, you know, but as this storm grows and as this momentum builds, and then, you know, crypto's, you know, superpower, other than obviously, you know, all of the, you know, security features and transparency and immutability, is also just in-game liquidity and, like, you know, pure real ownership of, oh, I have this super gun that I got and I'm beating everybody, and I can actually trade that in a market and then get something else in the game, et cetera. I get this integrated, open, transparent liquidity. Those pieces really kick in more, and the marketing engine goes as, like, you know, these cycles kind of flow. And I think, you know, the timing's working out really well, where I see all these builders. I mean, we see more builders than ever before. I'm in a very, I think, lucky vantage point to just see so many games in the early stages. And there are probably, you know, 20x the amount of builders now that there were 2 years ago building here. But the audience is not there yet. The audience is coming. So I'm personally very excited about where it's going. And And frankly, I think we all are a little happy we got this break to build and not have to worry about the insanity that we dealt with 2 years ago.
Yeah, and actually, so as I've seen a GDC hat that Kwame had, that actually it's a good way to put it, because when you compare GDC last year, what happened, what kind of conversation you had with people facing what is blockchain gaming, and this year, Dominic, you were there, we could play the game. It was totally different. Like you sense that something is happening because you got more curiosity from the gaming industry about what is really blockchain bringing in the table. So it was wonderful to capitalize on both your games, but also Jack's presentation about what is Scale, what Scale can do. I would say, as a last question, Jack, what would be your advice for any game developer try to figure out what to use, what network, how to come to you and try to have a conversation about how you could help?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to just kind of talk super high level of best practices I've seen. And I have to say, I'm, just fortunate to see so many game builders, but I think, there are some things in Web 2 that there's some core, whatever their 10 commandments are of user onboarding. I think we all need to go and say, all right, like, these are the 7 that work for blockchain, and we better integrate those, because that in-game experience, that first minute of getting people on board is so critical. And I think in general, I see teams that are doing a really good job of that. I see some other teams that are working on that. But I think as an industry, as like blockchain gaming people, like, we should try to learn from the, best practices of before. But then we obviously have a different dynamic in a different world. We have to integrate that to our world, but maybe it's 7 of their 10 commandments. And anyways, I just think that can be a superpower in competing in blockchain gaming. And then obviously we talked a lot about the user experience. That's absolutely critical. If you're building games that you need to have, know how to use Uniswap in order to play, you're limiting your audience. And then the last piece I want to say is now's the best time ever to build. Now, if you want to build a game and be successful, you should be building now, not trying to build it in a year or 2 years. And so our team, the Scale core team, we're here to help builders. We are just mission focused. That's what we care about. How many developers are we helping, and how are we helping them be successful? So please, you can go to scale.chat to get in touch via the Discord, or scale.space. You can get in touch via the website and other links. But we're here to help, and also just try to help move the ball forward in general for blockchain gaming. So anyway, it's been a pleasure to be here today, and I'm excited about the next 2 years. As you can obviously tell, I think we're where we need to be as an industry, and with the right momentum.
Thanks a lot for your time, guys. Really appreciate it. Wish you a very good day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.